Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to talk about who's having the best year ever. And what I've done is I compiled a list of 5 fighters, and I'm going to start from number 5 up to number 1. So we're going to go backwards, basically. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. Number 5, coming in at number 5, I have Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is having a great year. He just beat Oscar Valdez to become a unified champion, which is great. So, I can't really place him any higher on the list because, one, Oscar Valdez is a cheat. So you just beat a cheat. 2, it wasn't a shocker that he beat Oscar Valdez. We all knew he was going to beat Oscar Valdez. So it wasn't as if, he climbed Mount Everest to win and become a unified champion. No, we all knew he was going to beat Oscar Valdez. And on top of that, Valdez is a cheat. So, yes, you get the credit for the win. And yes, you get the belts and all that. But I can't make you any higher on this list just due to the fact that, number 1, I knew you were going to beat Oscar Valdez. And he's a cheat. So that's that. Next, I have Dmitry Bivol. He had an amazing victory over Canelo Alvarez. And honestly, I know a lot of you might be thinking, why isn't he higher on this list? But the reality is, number 1, he didn't gain a bout by this or anything like that, And number 2, he's a lot bigger than Canelo. Number 3, I think a lot of us knew in our hearts he was going to beat Canelo. At least I did. I just wish I would have said that more. But I knew he was going to beat him. And one thing about Dmitry Bivol was he was never rattled or anything like that. He didn't believe the hype train. He didn't believe, the myth of, or of the stigma of Canelo Alvarez. And he showed it. The whole time he was not afraid. There was zero fear. There was zero concern, it seemed, on the man. And he fought like it. He not only beat Canelo Alvarez, he beat the crap out of Canelo Alvarez. And he could have done more than that. I honestly believe he was being lenient to Canelo Alvarez. I think if they actually have this rematch, things are going to go a lot worse for Canelo Alvarez, especially if Bivol starts putting in his movement and actually uses his legs. A lot of people will say, he uses his legs in the fight. That's not the way Bivol fights. He's a very elusive fighter. So he could be a lot more elusive. And it's not like Canelo can chase you down because Canelo has bad knees. So got to give it to Bivol. He can't be any higher just for the reasons that I stated. And like I said, he never believed the hype, which I love about, Dmitry Bivol. Next, we have Katie Taylor. She had an amazing show out against Amanda Serrano. What makes this so important and so big was the fact that it was probably two of the most highly decorated female champs that are ever going to set in the ring at the same time, probably. And we're talking about they're at the top of their game, and they're in there at the same time, and they came in with all their belts and everything like that. And it was an amazing fight. It was a true fight. This is another reason why I can't give it number 1 slot to Katie Taylor. And this is also a reason why I can't give it to Dmitry Bivol, but I also can't give it to Shakur Stevenson. They didn't finish the fight. They didn't knock out their opponent. They didn't finish their opponent. Yes, they beat their opponent. If you want to look at Dmitry Bivol, he flat out, won every round. But still, you didn't dust him off. It wasn't like Canelo walked out with a black eye and a busted lip and a bloody nose or anything like that. He had a little bruise, but that was about it. So unfortunately, I can't give this to Katie Taylor either. Now, I will admit that out of all 3 fights that I just mentioned and all 3 fighters that I just mentioned, her fight was the hardest. And her fight was the most back and forth that we saw. It was a real slugfest and a truly great fight. And I honestly hope they do a rematch, to be honest with you, because I need to see that. And I think we would see both women up their games. So I think it would be really interesting because I don't believe we'd see the same fight again, to be honest with you. So, but unfortunately, just because of that, I can't bring her any higher on this list. Next, we have Errol the Truth Spence. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, Errol Spence is riding high right now. He is riding high right now. He just dusted off Yordenis Ugas, and he gave Ugas a beating. However, I can't bring him any higher in this list because he didn't finish the fight. You know, he didn't finish the fight the way we want to see a champ finish a fight. Let's say it like that. But on top of that, yes, he has another belt. He's unified champion, but he's not undisputed, so I still can't give him that either. And, I think Errol Spence is having an amazing comeback year because I still feel like when we speak of Errol Spence, we're still talking about this car accident. And then, unfortunately, he got the eye injury. So he had to battle all that and battle the critics in terms of, is he going to be the same? And, all right, well, he got past the car accident, but is it going to be the same with the eye? And what happens if the eye gets damaged and so on and so forth? And he proved them wrong again. So that is why he's number 2 on his list. However, the number one slot goes to Jermell, the Iron Man, Charlo. Got to give it to him. He dusted his guy off. He had a rematch with Brian Castano. And listen, the critics matter. I'm not saying it's important what they say, but it does matter. For him to hear you lost that fight, and for him to say, well, I'm going to make that right. I'm going to take this fight away from the judges. I'm going to take this away from the critics. I'm going to be the master of my own destiny inside this ring. And the only way to do that is to dust this guy off completely so that there are no more questions. There's nothing along that line. Nobody can say, it was close or well, he won rounds 4 through 7 or whatever. None of that's going to be needed. Judges aren't going to be needed. The referee's going to be needed because I might have to hurt this guy in here tonight, so the referee's going to be needed. But he took matters into his own hands. He finished this guy off, and he did it in tremendous fashion. But on top of that, another thing about Jermell Charlo was he upped his game. He didn't fight the way he typically fights. He didn't overstep. He wasn't over-anxious. He wasn't just throwing bombs. He was smart. He was calculated. He was paced. He was backing up while he was still being offensive. He wasn't overloading on his punches. He did everything right. And he won. He did everything right, and he won. And that alone is the reason why I got to put him as number 1. Well, that's not the only reason. He's also the undisputed champ at 154 pounds. So he's the undisputed champ at 154 pounds. He dusted off his guy, and he elevated his game. There you have it. Short and sweet, straight to the point. If you like what you're hearing, please like, please subscribe, please tell a friend. Tell your mama, your grandmama, Fighting Words is here. And drop your comments down below. Tell me if you agree with the way I the way I numbered the fighters off. Maybe you think it's Errol Spence who should have been number 1, or maybe you think it's Katie Taylor. Drop your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. As always, please like, please share, and please subscribe.